we doing this? Is it just going to be like a white snake?
It is live.
Is it live?
We're going. Okay. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the Thundrbro HQ staff meeting. Today, we will be talking about nothing but nonsense. Got our boy Kenny Miller, our CEO John Ziegler, all unique, highly qualified individuals, as well as myself with my custom background here. Look at that. Nothing more thunder than that. What's going on, guys?
What's going on, man? Kenny, what are you drinking right now, dude?
What do they call it down here? Dirty bean water.
Dirty bean water?
AKA coffee.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that like mushroom? They call it like, is it mushroom coffee? Is like a
Yeah, it's like tea, like mud water is what they call it.
Mud water, and they're like, it's. I feel so much better than when I was drinking coffee with my mud water, and I'm like, that's bullshit.
That is 100% bullshit. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but no,
guys. I got a thing like for Starbucks. There's something like the act of drinking a coffee out of that Starbucks cup, with the hard plastic lid and they double cup it for me and all that stuff.
The BPAs and the BPCs and
I actually asked them if I could just have a bunch of the cups, and so I took them just so I could feel fancy at home because like it's expensive. It's expensive, and I got this $15 Mr. Coffee maker that is amazing because it's all about the beans, right? So I splurge on the coffee. I get like Stumptown. I like Phil's coffee.
Stumptown's good.
Grind it live, and then just put it in there. And literally within like a minute, the coffee pot is full.
Yeah.
And then you guys saw like I just got like the real cups you would see in a coffee shop. Then I saw this. This is a ceramic. What is it? It's like it's a ceramic of a Starbucks cup. So now I don't need to get the cups anymore. It's just at least it looks the same to me. What is that? What does that one say? Dogs and coffee. John,
dude,
what is yours?
Black Rifle. There we go.
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
There's the original Black Rifle air version of a Starbucks is right here in Waco. And we go there like on the last Friday of every month because they do coffee for a veteran. So they just give veterans free coffee, and like you could buy a coffee and just sit there and listen to these war stories of the old guys. It's freaking awesome.
Dude, I am one of those old guys.
There's a couple, like, what are some of the coffee companies? Like you got Black Rifle. Because like I was thinking about one that I saw in the store that had like a crazy bag with a gnarly on it. What was it?
Death Wish
coffee.
Oh no, I bought Death Wish coffee.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Death Wish coffee. It smelled pretty good. I tried it one day. I was like, it drinks pretty well. I didn't realize it has 700 milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah.
Serving, and I was like, oh, this is not good for my kidneys.
you were at the gym before you realized you forgot your keys. Yeah.
So what I'll do is like I'll put the regular coffee in, and then I might put like a tablespoon of the Black Rifle in if I want to like amp up the caffeine content. But there was another brand I can't fucking think about. I know they do like really funny stuff, and you always send me their videos, John.
That's Black Rifle.
That's Black Rifle. That's Black Rifle. The other one that has come out that's like started doing really funny videos, and they're fucking hilarious, is Fire Department Coffee.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you guys seen that. They do a whole thing called Fire Department Chronicles, and it's this guy who's just basically reenacting real things that they have responded to, and some of it is just
I have seen that guy.
Is Black Rifle the one where the guy asks for cream in his coffee and he's like,
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and she like chucks the coffee in his face, like he's like, I wanted cream in this, and she's like, oh, okay. Turns around, chucks the coffee in like some other dude's face. I love those guys.
Black. It defeats the whole purpose. To me, like black coffee, I like the taste of it. I feel like it punches a lot harder too. But coffee to me is like more of an appetite suppressant as well. Just to keep you from craving carbs. And so if you're going to put the carbs in there, the milk and the cream, I'm like, you're defeating the purpose here. Plus, it kind of kills the taste of the coffee, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like you want to taste it. Imagine if you got like a really nice glass of wine, right? Like a Bordeaux, a Chardonnay, a Merlot, and you're like, oh, that's awesome, thank you so much. Do you have any Splenda? And you Splendid it in there.
All right, so I'm about to lose cool points, guys. I put oat milk and 2 raw sugars into my coffee.
Hey, Dave, how do we kick people out of this?
What is it about the plain black coffee that you object to, John?
Man, that's a really good question. It's too bitter to me.
Yeah,
like there's too much of a bitter bite. I'm not like I don't do bitter like anything. My dad and I argue about this. Like I love my dad, but there are certain things.
It reminds me of my childhood. That bitter, dark.
I tried when I was in the military, man. We used to make coffee that you could literally stand a spoon up in. It was fucking gnarly coffee, and I tried. And, yeah.
If I could get somebody to just give me like a good coffee and then maybe take like a raw salmon and slap me across the face with it, that would be the perfect way to get going, right?
Perfect way to get going.
Like,
Let's go. Death Wish coffee to me is like the coffee equivalent of fucking Jacked.
Yeah.
Do you remember Jacked back in the day? Like one ingredient away from being exactly the chemical composition of methamphetamine.
So, I mean, caffeine is incredible. It really is a performance enhancer for sure.
Yeah.
But there is a line, there is a zero barrier, right? And usually I think it's 5 grams or 5 milligrams per kilo, right? So if you're like 100 kilo guy going over 500 now, there are negative detrimental effects, but you're not getting any more benefit out of the caffeine, but it will definitely make you stronger for sure. You know, it's the way it stimulates your mental acuity and your central nervous system. If you're going to lift heavy, I get it. That's why those power lifters love that, like Death Wish coffee and powerlifting. What are you gonna do? Like drink the coffee, take some smelling salts, and then go rip an 800-pound deadlift your nose. That's a great day. Here we go.
Dude, the smelling salt thing, I never got. Like, I still don't quite fully comprehend.
Have you ever tried the smelling salts?
No.
Okay, if you tried them, you would get them.
Dude, we use them on set every once in a while. This last show,
Really?
I did, me and one of the like if you got to get amped up for a scene, if you got to come in hard with a ton of energy, just one whiff of that, and you just
wait. Can we for everybody that's like just meeting Kenny for the first time? I feel like we have to preface by saying Kenny is like our Hollywood actor, like guy.
You've seen Kenny in a number of movies as a henchman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And that famous line, Donald Rumsfeld's going to be pissed about this one.
Yeah. Yep. Did I just watch that the other day? 12 Strong? I just watched that the other day. I was like, fuck, there's Kenny.
Kenny, is there anyone, and just because your ears to the ground, I'm sure you're more connected with that whole scene, amongst actors, okay, let's even narrow it down to like male actors.
Okay.
Are there any male actors that are like legit athletes that like really train, that really can like bring?
That's a great question.
Ooh, let's see.
Because I know they look great, right? But sometimes it's like, oh, they look so much bigger on camera, and you meet them in person, you're like, they're fucking small. Sometimes it's just like they're just genetics. They got great looking bodies. But is there anybody that's like fucking strong as shit that can just like move weight?
Alan Richardson, the guy that plays Reacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
Give me some stats. What's his? I need to know his bench. I need to know what he's pulling.
I don't know his bench, but I know like when he got Reacher, apparently he went from like 205 to 245 for that role. He just started packing on muscle, and he was doing like old school, right? Like he was just straight up mass gainer and going crazy.
And he did that in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah. And he only talks about like using testosterone or anything like that after the first season when he realized like this is unsustainable. The amount of stress putting on my body.
I've seen those interviews with him after season 1 as he was trying to maintain his physique for season 2, like saying, hey, I went and looked too. He went and got his blood work done before he did it though. He talks about it.
Yeah. Then the guy would say Henry Cavill.
Like, it's interesting because like getting ready for a role that's like your job, right? I mean, that's your full-time job is like eat, sleep, train, or get in character, right? So if you're going to go to the gym and hammer 3 hours of training, and that works, but then when you have other responsibilities, it must be very hard to maintain, because like in my life, I have that blocked out. Like this is my sacred time of day that I go. Even like tonight, right, 9:30 p.m. I'm going to be in the gym with my buddy Scott, and we're going to go until midnight, just slamming weight, right? That's like, but I imagine that a lot of these people, at least when I was in New York, right, I trained a lot of actors and stuff, and I was like, none of them really train hard. They just come in, kind of mail it in, yada yada, and then they're out of there. He definitely looked bigger in season 2 for sure.
Oh, yeah, he definitely did.
So what is he saying that he did? He's saying he did testosterone. That was it.
He said he went and got his after season 1. He realized he's like, dude, that's freaking unsustainable to stay 240, 250.
You got to stay big and stay lean like that.
And a lot of people, like you said, getting ready for the role is one thing. You got all day long. You could eat, train, whatever, but for a show like that, he'll probably be on set 12, 14 hours a day. Like when are you getting a lift in at that point? We get like an hour lunch. He'll probably get like an hour lunch, but that's not enough time to go hit the weights hard enough to stay big. Plus also eating the caloric surplus he would need to maintain that size, right?
Yeah. I mean, the hard part is always getting there, right? So, I mean, you got to really stress yourself, whether you're cutting body fat or putting on muscle mass, like you have to push hard. Yeah. Once you're there, you could dial it back to 70% of what you were doing and probably maintain it really, really well. Yeah. The problem is when people go really, really hard, they get there and then they stop. Yeah. And their body has this reflex rebound effect. Yeah. Like, hey, put the fat back on, or, I don't need to eat that much. I'm going to reduce my mass.
Like a regression to the norm that they've been living in forever.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why people have to reverse diet. It works really well when you push yourself hard and then you reverse diet. Even when you're reverse dieting, you can continue to see really good progress because in some ways you're fueling your metabolism that may have slowed down from being in a big caloric deficit. So, and then even if you are eating a deficit, the fact that you're eating more food, you're like, this feels great. I'm totally full. Despite the fact that it's still not a ton of food because you're used to eating very, very little. And with the surplus too, I mean, people with the surplus, I'm starting to become more of a fan of like not going super aggressive with those caloric surpluses just for the sake of the quality of the mass, you don't need to. I think the net yield in muscle is the same whether you're doing a 250 calorie surplus or 1,000 calorie surplus. Yeah. But you don't have to worry about cleaning yourself up after so much when you're just doing a 250 calorie surplus. Yeah. Sure. So testosterone, I wonder, let's see, if I was writing a prescription for Alan Richardson to put on, what did you say, 45 pounds of muscle?
Something like that, yeah. Okay, so he's like 6'5", or 6'6". Yeah,
he's got a great frame. That's a very big frame. So a guy like that, he could be easily 250. Yeah. Okay, so he's 6'5", and he did it how fast?
I would say he probably had 2 months tops, 3 months maybe to really get full size. But remember, he also had to do a shirtless scene every single episode. So you got to stay cut. You can't just get huge.
So I would never make an assertion to know what he did. So he's saying he did testosterone. He didn't allude to the amount of testosterone that he did. But I think that would be very hard to do just with like TRT. That's more of like maybe a year-long kind of thing. But if it's like 2-3 months, that would probably look like, I don't know, 300 milligrams of testosterone, 300 milligrams of DECA or nandrolone, and probably a good caloric surplus with a low-fat diet. He might have been doing 400 grams of protein, 700 grams of carbs and very low fat, and then a good lifting program. That is achievable, because I think if you do that if you go in real hard like that, I think you could, and it was a 12-week period, you could put on.
I mean, I'm messing.
45 pounds is a lot. You probably, you'd even maybe throw in like some growth hormone in there too, so that when you do consume all the food, you can maybe stay a little tighter. Because that's the cool thing about growth hormone is it allows you to eat a lot of carbs and a lot of surplus of food without translating that into fat mass versus muscle mass.
Wouldn't a pretty high dose of testosterone also give you increased growth hormone or IGF-1 levels?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's when people
think what's that dose look like to be able to do that?
Well, first you got to understand context, right? So like when someone says like, I went on testosterone or started taking testosterone, there is like a very large spectrum, right? So let's say you're a regular, 40, 50-year-old dude who has hypogonadism and you're experiencing erectile dysfunction, you're just low T, right? If you go to an endocrinologist, they'll probably give you 100 milligrams of testosterone a week to be able to get you to like maybe 500 nanograms per deciliter in your total. And that total is really like, let's say low testosterone is probably about 250 nanograms per deciliter. The top end of normal is about 1,000. So 500 is kind of like right in the middle, or what you would consider normal, healthy, not great, not bad though. Right. So that's what the endocrinologist will do. Now, if you go to like the longevity doctors, like the functional medicine doctors, they're like, I don't want you to be okay. I want you to feel awesome. I want you to be optimal. So they'll give you almost up to 200 milligrams of testosterone to get you closer to like 800 to 1,000 nanograms. And that's like how you felt when you were younger, right? Like you're an 18 to 24-year-old kid. Like that's where the testosterone should be. And so that's normally the dosage there. And then you have like sports HRT, and sports HRT would be like, hey, I'm an athlete. I compete in a sport. Maybe I'm like doing bodybuilding at an amateur level. And those guys will sometimes run like 300 milligrams of testosterone a week just to be able to do that. And then if they're like doing something like a show, they might bump it up to what I was suggesting. If you had that amount of time to put on that amount of mass, whether it's gaining or cutting, probably bring it up to like 600 total between maybe testosterone and something else. But to put it into context, right? So that's like, at 100 or 200 or 300, there really aren't any concerning side effects. Once you go above that, it's like 50-50, right? I fix my liver now, it's getting jacked up, or my hematocrit's getting too high, I got to go donate blood. You end up having to recover from that a little bit, so you can't just like stay on that level forever. But then pro bodybuilders, they're doing like 3,000. Like and so it is like a deadly amount of steroids that those guys do. So my point is, when someone says I'm using testosterone, you have to
there's a big range there.
The devil is in the dosage, right?
Right.
If you're on 300 or 3,000, what the heck does your nanogram look like?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it must be insane. So that would be like usually it's like 3 grams that these guys might be doing. It's a cocktail of different stuff. So usually, the testosterone is almost always kind of like a foundational base included in these cycles, but then there'll be like other steroids that are honestly like very harsh on the body, stuff like trenbolone, that's kind of the go-to, they give it to, stock.
Dude, what do you think about like just in that really quick, man? Because one of the things that I see like as I cruise through social is a bunch of like young like influencer dudes who are very much like on trend in like their early 20s, and they're huge, dude. Like they're huge, right? But like,
I don't even think they are that huge, though. I don't think they are that huge.
Yeah, but you're a big dude. I'm small.
I think it's I think it's so dangerous because, first of all, they're encouraging young kids to engage in really reckless behavior. And, like it's just like, you are going to destroy your body, and at honestly, like at that point, you don't even need it. Like you don't even if you were like, hey, I want to change my body. Like there are so many other much more conservative and less harmful ways to do that. And then when you look at them, you're like, they're taking all this trend, but they're not enormous because they haven't reached muscle maturity, because they haven't had years and years of training and eating. They don't have that foundation. So basically I'm like, they're only just doing harm to their body to try to take a little shortcut. And it's going to have a shelf life, right? Because you can't stay on that stuff, and there'll probably be some really harmful health effects that might inhibit you from even being able to train again, so yeah, that's really reckless. And it's also like the attitude on it is so nonchalant, like we're doing trend, it's so funny. I'm like, it's not funny at all. Like that's some serious shit. Like that, you do not want to take that lightly. That's like you are playing with fire with that stuff. Even pro bodybuilders understand that, is like they don't fuck around with it. I think the difference is like these pro bodybuilders, they know what they're getting into. I think they're very aware of the trade-off, because this is their life and they're willing to take that risk. That's how bad they want it. Now, I think sometimes you might get lost a little bit, because in the world of bodybuilding, you're just surrounded by all these enormous freak people that you almost lose your bearings of what's normal. And the way they just talk about their drug use, like, oh, it's really normal to do X, Y, or Z. So it's like validating in a way that I think sometimes it's like rationalizing it to yourself, but that shit's crazy, man, with the kids. And even, if you're an 18-year-old kid, like, first get real strong, learn how to train right, and eat like learn how to eat like a pro. And if you want to do like some performance enhancing stuff, I mean, there are other options that are way, way better and safer, even if it is like a little testosterone, or I think there are like peptides and things that you can get a lot of mileage out of. It's just I think it's the fact that everyone else is doing it, so they think they're supposed to do it. When I was 18, like, I was freshman in college. I went to school. I was 180 pounds my freshman year of college. I came back for the summer, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to lift. I got a great buddy who's like a power lifter guy. So we were training together, and he was like, all right, kind of showed me how to eat. And we bought a jug of Celtec, which is like creatine monohydrate, right? Yeah. And in that summer, which is not super long, right? You're talking about like June, July, August, you're back in school. So like maybe 3 months. I went from 180 to 205 in that summer, just by eating and training and taking creatine. And I repeated that the next summer. By the time I was a junior, I was up in like the 220s. But you didn't need to take a performance enhancing drug. You're young, like you have the hormones. Like it's just a matter of being maybe a little patient, right? And or putting in the work. But yeah, man, it's crazy with those kids. I know exactly who you're talking about, and I just hate the way people they're so nonchalant about it, and they think it's so cool and funny. I'm like, it's not cool and funny. If you ask a bodybuilder who's done trend throughout their career how fucking serious it is, because almost all of them have experienced some major side effects from it, and they were being, at least a little more cognizant, or had a better understanding of what it meant to do it.
Yeah.
Drugs.
All
the drugs. But who knows what that guy did? Who knows what Richard said? Who cares, too?
No, who cares?
I think it's extremely impressive, to be able to do that regardless. I saw a lot of people ripping on him because they thought his statements were maybe not as truthful as they could have been about like, oh, I took testosterone. But he didn't say how much he was taking, and so who cares? Like, and why does it matter? I think the people that get upset about that are just the ones that are unable to achieve those results themselves.
Yeah. And also, I think there's such a huge misconception that you just stick the needle in your butt and all of a sudden your muscles are perfectly formed, right? That you don't have to do any work. It's not that it helps you recover. It helps you, go longer in the gym, and allows you to show up the next day and work just as hard as you did on Monday.
Well, John, you started TRT this year, right? This is your first time dipping your how old are you now? You're coming up on 50.
Dude, no, I'm 51. I'll be 52 in like a month and a week.
So 51 years of being natural, and you have a very good physique, right? I mean, that's you got a lot of mileage out of doing everything you could as natural as you could for as long as you could. I remember when you told me you were going on it, Kenny, I was like, here's what to expect. The first month you do it, there really aren't going to be any physical changes, but you will notice maybe some mental changes. Like you might find yourself being more motivated, more driven, more hungry to compete, like, just a bit more energized, better sexual appetite, right? But there's nothing physical that happens. And then usually by like month 2, you're like, oh, I am looking a little leaner, or I've got a little bit more vasculature, but you're not like blowing up in size,
no, not at all. I mean, it looked
a little bit better. But if you keep going, because I think what the sweet spot is, if you can find the right amount of testosterone that you can maintain with little or no health side effects, right? So you get the chemistry in the body right, so that when you do the right things, your body responds to it. Now you can have long-term progress, as opposed to what a lot of people do. They're like, I'm going to do a cycle, right? And so they'll take a bunch, like way too much, and try to make as much progress in a short period of time. And then they have to get off it. But when they get off it, then there's this huge drop off. They end up back where they were, except now they got maybe health issues. So it doesn't make sense to me. I think just having a high standard and slow ascent really makes a lot more sense.
Well, and to your point, right? So when it took me years to decide to even go near it, because I was fit, right? Like as an affiliate owner, a coach, everything else, and just a lifelong person who loved like competing and being athletic. Like I just took care of myself. So I didn't see a need to until I started to notice declines in things like energy levels and like sex drive and those kinds of things. And then it was like, all right, well, let's take a look at it, because now I'm noticing over the last year, there's significant shifts. And went into the doc, and the doc's like, yeah, like you're low, needs to happen. And you were right. Like the first month, like I noticed energy shifts. I noticed like more clarity. I noticed the ability to stay focused a little bit better. Those kinds of things happen. And then physically, to be completely honest, like because I've trained for as long as I have, I just feel like I did before that energy decline started to happen.
I think there's also like a really strong placebo effect to a degree, because people think they're going to get real muscular. And then because they're doing that, they're like, I got to go to the gym and eat good because I'm an enhanced athlete. I mean, how crappy would it be to like go through all that and pin yourself with drugs and nothing changes?
Dude, I'll tell you guys a story.
So like going out and like eating shitty and not training, that's just so silly.
So years and years ago, like in 2003, I worked for Gold's Gym. That's where I started as like a trainer. And of course, like, 2003, like a lot of the trainers were on different cycles of everything because they're bodybuilders. And that was kind of the Gold's Gym thing. And there was a dude that came in, and he was, I don't know, he was kind of built like a dwarf from Lord of the Rings, right? Yeah. Just short, like square body dude. And he wanted to get bigger. And they told him like, well, you gotta do some cycles and everything else. This dude did the cycles and then didn't put in the work. So all he wound up looking like was a really bright red Lord of the Rings.
Red and puffy.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, why are you going to spend all that money and go through all that shit and put yourself through all that and not do the work that needs to coincide to be able to like get the benefit?
Yeah, I think so. And plus, the other thing is like, I feel like because I think there is this inherent understanding that when you put pharmaceuticals in your body, that's going to represent a stress to your body that's both good and bad. I think it almost encourages people to try to live cleaner because there may be some detrimental effects, right? Like it may jack up your liver a little bit or something like that. And so you want to kind of mitigate those by living as clean as you can. And I read something really interesting about bodybuilders versus sedentary, normal, regular people. And he said, hey, what's interesting is that like competitive bodybuilders overall seem to have better health outcomes than your average normal sedentary person, because despite the fact that they are taking drugs at a level that can be harmful to their health, because they live and eat so clean, it almost has like, I don't know if it's a counter effect, but it's almost like it evens out a little bit because the other people are eating processed food and they're not doing shit. So that, represents the same kind of detriment to their health. So at the end, it's like, would you rather look awesome, be strong, and live as long as your average Joe?
Right. Yeah.
Well, the people who live the longest are usually the ones that try to stay as natural as they can, as long as they can. Like you, John, like try to do things right, lots of meat and fruit and vegetables. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think that age that people are starting this stuff seems to be getting younger and younger. And I think it's probably environment, I'd imagine, right? Like,
well, I got a question. I mean, kind of the same thing, because the more open conversations everybody's starting to have around testosterone, or even things like semaglutides or peptides or anything like that, it seems like it's almost, I hate this word, but like normalizing it in a sense.
Yeah.
Well, with that whole idea, yeah, I see two things. When I see people that are younger thinking like, oh, okay, well, this is okay to do for longevity purposes and, things like that. Also,
if they're doing it for longevity, at the appropriate dose.
And right. Also men's testosterone, like, it's just been waning for years, right? But also the other thing I see, kind of contrary to what you were saying, is I see a lot of people who kind of are thinking that this is a miracle pill, or like a fix. Oh, I don't have to eat healthy. I don't have to go to the gym. I can take testosterone and a semaglutide and I'm as healthy as a bodybuilder is. So what are your thoughts on, like, what could the effects of testosterone being on somebody who stays eating processed foods and keeps that sedentary lifestyle?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, I think it would improve. It would improve it a little, because the testosterone is going to help with things like insulin sensitivity. Okay. And chances are, if you feel more driven, you probably do more stuff. But it makes me ask the question, like, why are we seeing like all the low T happening at an increasingly younger age?
Oh.
Like I heard statistics, I can't even remember it, but they were saying like, like the average 30-year-old today has the same testosterone level as a 60-year-old back in like the 1950s. Yeah. Like, what gives? Like, why is it? And I think you could probably point to a lot of things. Like, I think there's the quality of life, might be a big one. Sure. Like, I think about my parents and my grandparents, like, honestly, I think they had much easier lives than we did, or we do now, at least. Like, they would go to work, 9 to 5, 9 to 4, come home, plenty of time. They could afford housing. They had quiet time. They had family time. They weren't inundated with like screens and information and just like overstimulated constantly. Yeah. They slept,
that's a big one.
It was better. The food was cleaner. Didn't have as much pesticides. Didn't have as much chemicals. There weren't any plastics in the environment, right? Like, just like the plastics, even in the air, and even this, even the cup I'm in now, I got plastic on it. Like, this is everywhere. I think those are probably the biggest reasons why. And then maybe there's like estrogenic stuff that we're exposed to constantly, these phytoestrogens that even, like, look at puberty, right? Puberty's happening younger and younger. And I think that's probably the estrogens people are exposed, the kids are exposed to. I mean, we have a friend who's got a 7-year-old daughter, 7 years old, and she's starting to like show signs of early puberty.
Wow.
I'm
wow,
like,
that's crazy.
God, I'm gonna just take Zoe out to the mountains and get her away from all this.
Yeah. But I think, Dave, I think you got a good point, right? So if you look back a couple generations, right, it's drastically different. Now, it may have been, and I think that there's a trade-off, right? There may have been a harder quality to their life because it was more physically demanding.
But that would be promoting health and testosterone.
Right. And I think that's the piece a lot of people miss is they're like, oh, my grandparents had such a hard life because they were working a farm or they were working a ranch or they were doing manual labor. And you're like, yeah, but
in the sun, getting vitamin
D, right? You're up off your ass. Whereas now,
my grandfather's social life. So my grandfather, Navy guy, just like you, John. Really great boxer, loved boxing, continued to do that. Was a great tennis player. That was his social life, and men's clubs, racket clubs. I don't know where those are anymore. And yeah, I mean, he was a salesman. He was on the road a lot selling chemicals, funny enough. But he and I think that he also had my grandmother was a very supportive wife, took care of the house, made the food. I just think it was the standard of what was required out of you each day was just different. I think people.
I think it was laid out clearer too.
People are in a spot now where they need to be hyper performers in their jobs that allow them to make as much money as they can in a single job, or they have a job and then they have a side hustle and they're doing this, that they're driving Uber at night too. And then I also think that we're getting hypnotized by the cell phones, where it just sucks you away and there's just everything everywhere. It's not a moment of silence.
Yeah.
And
that's,
you got silence there in the bottom of your Shark Tank or out on your ranch.
Kenny's like exactly where all of us would like to be.
That's why I did it.
Set out, set out away from everything. But I mean,
literally,
I think the sheer amount of noise that we are inundated with now is, I don't know about you guys, but for me, when it's quiet, actually quiet, right? There's just a moment I can feel my entire body relax. So when there's no background noise, there's no hum of machines around me. There's nothing else.
About that.
Yeah.
I was reading something about that the other day. I don't know. I'm going to misquote the statistic, but it was something like in the 50s or 60s when dishwashers and refrigerators first started coming out, they had to level the decibels out. That's why they had packed.
Oh, I had to lost Kenny.
Kenny froze.
He's talking decibels.
Yeah, he got killed by sharks.
Dude.
The shark finally got him.
I mean, John, even in the time that we've been on this call, I got 10 notifications and 3 text messages. And I showed you this before, but I have 120,000 unread emails. Yeah. Just it's so much.
Kenny, so what were you saying, man? Because you
were talking decibels. You were talking decibels.
Yeah, we were talking decibels. You said about leveling out decibels in the
the average dishwasher or something would have been harmful to the human ears or something like that. Would have slowly drove you insane. But the amount of decibels that's just going on, ambient noise in a city now, is 5 or 6 times that amount, and it's just a constant noise. And then, so this guy was talking about, I forgot what the word was, but going out into nature. That he has this protocol. He does 15 minutes a day in nature with no noise, and then 30 minutes twice a week, and then an hour once a month, and then he tries once a year to find a place that's not affected by man-made noise. And there's something 12 places left in America that are far enough away from a city that the decibel actually lowers enough that you only hear nature.
You just hear the
yeah, just that. And it would actually, that level of silence, now we're so in tune with the hum, like you were saying, the hum of machines, it would actually kind of make most people psychologically uneasy.
Yeah, I need to be hearing something. So I lived in Manhattan for 5 years on the Upper East Side. And, man, these cities suck you in. like I started there originally thinking like, oh, I'm going to take this job in the off season before I go back and play baseball for, spring training. So I came in the fall and I'm like, it's just going to be for a little bit. I told myself it's going to be for a little bit. Famous last words.
Yeah.
And then, my business started really taking off, and I got a bunch of clients and I was making a bunch of money. I'm like, wow, this is, has a future. Like I should probably stay here. And that's what, helped me decide to move on from pro baseball. And then the plan was always to like move out of the city somehow. Because the city was just like so much noise, like a concrete jungle, like so much stress. And I remember one day I went with my friend Denise. We used to like travel around to gyms. We both worked in the city, right? You work in the city, you walk real fast on the street, in the subway, and people are banging you. There's a lot of energy, right? But it's just like overwhelming stimulus. We got on the subway and we came out in Brooklyn. And as we walked out, I was just like, I looked at it and I was like, Denise, like, I can hear birds. And it felt so good. I was like, this feels so good. Maybe we should live here. Like, this is amazing. And it was just like a weight lifted off of you because you don't even realize that it's affecting you because it becomes normal.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, this is life. Like I'm used to just being my shoulders up here. And that's I think that's why everyone in Manhattan's like so fucking angry, because it's not like New Yorkers. There are no New Yorkers in New York City. Everyone in the city is not from the city. They're from, they're like, if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere. But it's like the attitude of the city is just so jacked up and anxiety, aggressive, competitive, that it's just like that energy bleeds into every aspect. And, since some of it is cool, right? Like you could make like a montage of like city noises where it's just like the subway, the air stuff, the cabs, the beep, beep, like, it's just like, it's a lot. But it's kind of like Vegas. I'm like, cool for a day. You wouldn't pay for more than that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jesus.
That's it.
And LA is different, Kenny, because LA, you just got the freeway sucking the life out of you.
You got everything. It's the same, except for LA tries to not be New York. So they're all pissed off and angry, but they just don't show it. They're all zen. But
Let me ask you a question.
They're not, though, because I lived in San Diego, and when LA people would come down to San Diego, we're like, what's wrong with you guys?
It's all a facade. They just want to be zen, but they're all pissed off. Yeah.
But now San Diego's become that too, because San Diego's population has grown so massively, and there's so many transplants into San Diego. Everybody's like all amped up there too, and you're like, oh, man, nobody's mellow anymore.
LA reminds me of a bunch of people trying to use folks as like a human ladder. Like,
yes, 100%. Everything's a facade. LA is so much like the movies. Like, on a movie set, if we have a house, we don't build all the walls. We only build the wall that you're going to see on camera. That's exactly like the people. It's what we want you to see, and that's it. There's nothing behind.
I had a friend from high school, great buddy, Matt Goldberg, decided he's going to be a rap producer. So he interned for P. Diddy. I don't know what happened. He interned for P. Diddy, doing like promotions, stuff like that. And he's in LA, and he was living in his apartment, and he got this car that was like a very expensive car, right? And I think this happens a lot with people out there. Like they buy it's like maybe a status thing for him. He was like, no, like it's important for me to have this fancy car so that potential clients trust me, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's a lot of that, like that facade, like, hey, I'm going to rent the jet for a day and take some Instagram photos on it to show how successful I am.
I had an actor buddy of mine, same thing. He got there and he was on he was on an Oscar award-winning movie. So he got there, and his manager told him the same thing. He showed up in like his I think he had like a Volkswagen or Jetta or something like that. And they were like, no, dude, you have actual meetings with studio heads right now. Go buy at minimum an Audi A5, lease it, whatever you have to. But that's how you're going to make money. You have to spend money to make money. That's what they tell you. So he went and got this crazy lease for like an Audi A7 Sport or something like that, just so he could go to the studio head meetings. They don't see your car. You park it in the lot, which is like 10 blocks over, or they valet it or something like that. Makes no sense. That's how the people think out there. It's so dumb.
Yeah, I love the people too that are like highly successful that drive like a beat up pickup truck.
Yeah,
you know, they seem like when I was in Manhattan. So I lived right by East River. It's kind of next to Central Park, a couple blocks away, and cool neighborhood. I actually moved into a Trump Place building, which like I said, this is why it sucked me in. I started in Chinatown in a room that was like $1,000 a month. And then I started getting some clients, and I'm like, I'm out of this shithole. I'm going to move to the Upper East Side. So I moved to like Jerry Seinfeld territory on 96th, up on the Upper East Side, right next to that restaurant that's in the bumper, right? And that was a little bit nicer. And then the business really grew, and I'm like, all right, I'm getting into a Trump Place building, beautiful, marble floor lobby, like really cool. I had this industrial cart that was like, I got it like Home Depot, and I would fill it with kettlebells and sandbags. And I would wheel it through the lobby of the Trump Place building and walk it up to Central Park, but like, that's the thing in Manhattan is like the better you do, the city ends up absorbing that money where you're like, oh, well, instead of walking, I'm going to take a cab, or instead of eating at a discount, I'm just going to order in sushi, so it's like you get to improve your quality of life to justify your existence there.
So you have to work harder to keep up with that now. Yeah.
One time I'm on my skateboard in my neighborhood, just skateboarding around. It's like super cold in the fall. I had this little run. I'd go down to the grocery store on my board, and I see this guy on a bench with like a trench coat on, and he's screwing this. He's like riding back and forth. I'm struggling. I'm like, I'm going to walk up to this guy just to ask him if he's okay. He's like a really tall, skinny guy. And I'm like, hey man, I'm from the neighborhood. I just wanted to make sure you are right. And he looks up at me and he's like, I'm okay. And he comes back down. I take a couple steps away and I go, that was Keanu Reeves. Okay. But he's like a Zen dude, right? Like he's just like this weird wreck who doesn't really fit the profile, right? He just kind of lives on his own terms. Yeah. But everyone struggles with that shit. All right, here. So Kenny, tell me if there was a battle, if there was a combat, like a battle royale against Hollywood major motion picture film stars versus porn stars, who would win?
I'm all in. I'm all in on this one. Come on, dude.
I gotta pick Hollywood. We'd have to win. Just I don't know.
So here's the thing. I think Hollywood has the advantage because like it's very tough to make it in Hollywood. So there's probably like a lot of mental fortitude. But then the porn stars, you also have to consider these are probably people with no options, right? They're like
they can take pain a lot worse.
They can take a beating.
It seems like could you imagine? Like I feel like the same guys that do porn would be like, oh yeah, I tried UFC a little bit too, like. Didn't David Bautista? Didn't he used to do porn?
A bunch of
no, I don't think so, man. He talked about like being a bodyguard or not a bodyguard, like a bouncer for a long time was his gig, and then went from being like a bouncer into the WWE.
So wouldn't that make like bouncer WWE porn star? Isn't that like the triangle? Isn't that the triangle?
The same as like bottle girl into flight attendant into nurse's assistant or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ring girl, like ring girl, somewhere.
Dental hygienist, stripper, stay-at-home nanny.
Yeah. No, it's stripper, dental hygienist, because you got to make the money to be able to go to dental hygienist
school. Yeah,
right.
And then you got to do it smart too, because you got to hit that school right on your way down.
Have you
at like 33
any run-ins with that industry, Kenny? Like, has anyone ever been like, hey, I saw you in that Lifetime movie and I got a real opportunity for you?
Never been approached for that one.
No,
never been approached. I didn't hang out much in Chatsworth though, which is where that happens apparently. So
Valley CrossFit, right? Was like, I don't know. It's been so long since I've been out there and in that CrossFit scene on the West Coast, but back in like 2009 to 12, like we used to go up there quite a bit because Kristen Clever, Becca Voigt, and Katie Hogan. There weren't many dudes, to be honest with you, but we would go up there sometimes like with Cam and do like a training session up there with them or go film something for like CrossFit.com. And when we walked into their gym, I was like so impressed. I was like, this gym is enormous. Wow, incredible. And they were like, yeah, used to be a porn warehouse.
Yeah.
I was like, stuff in the back.
Yeah. That's where all that's up towards Chatsworth or whatever. We're next to the Van Nuys Airport, and that's where you can. That's those places where you can go rent. This is the other thing. All the influencers, that's what they're doing. Like half of the Instagram and TikTok influencers, they're not actually on a private jet. They're on a porn set.
Yep.
And they just go rent it for a couple hours just to do a couple different TikToks. So they're just on a porn set. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. Influencers are the biggest bullshit artists on like the fucking planet.
Oh yeah.
And I cannot it baffles me. And maybe this is like my old age seeping through, right? And like just being around bullshit long enough, you start to look at something and you're like, dude, no, I'm sorry, but no. And you see these influencers and dudes like, I went from making $1 a day, right, giving hand jobs behind dumpsters to making $100,000 in a week, and I'll give you the 5 steps by. And they're like walking by like some $100,000 car, and this is my jet, and you're like, dude, no, you didn't. No, you did not. Like, don't do that, because now you got a bunch of like idiots out there running around like giving you thousands of dollars to find out that all they got to do is go find some rich old guy or old lady and be like, hey, I'll be your pool boy.
Yeah. I would never, I just like, I could never do porn, just being a faithful husband, it would never work. And even if I wasn't, I believe in the sanctity of sex and marriage, but what I would do a live cam. And if I was doing a live cam, what I would do is I would do it shirtless, and I would give my hypertrophy for functional fitness lecture. And right with like a link for Thundrbro at the bottom. Like,
hold on, I'm writing this down. This is a 2025 initiative now. Is Dave's OnlyFans hypertrophy channel.
Well, I mean, you have to establish credibility somehow to get someone to watch, right? Yeah. And in the process, they're like, I did not know the anatomy of a muscle fiber. That was really the sliding filament theory. I thought the sliding filament theory was something totally different.
Somebody just starts typing in. They're like, here's an extra $10 if you'll strip down to your underwear.
Yeah.
That's nuts. And isn't that just speaking to the fact that, man, people are just lonely? You're so connected with everybody, but also so alone at the same time.
Though, one of the interesting like things that I came across, and I won't name the place that I worked, but I worked for a place, and all of a sudden it was brought to my attention in a meeting with like HR, the sheer number of girls that we had working for us that had OnlyFans pages to supplement like their income. And here's kind of the messed up thing about it, though, is they would openly talk about like these OnlyFans pages that they have in like the workplace, and then file sexual harassment charges against dudes in the workplace because they like caught them looking at them weird.
Yeah, well, I say as a responsible employee, you should probably investigate to see what the nature of those pages. Within professional context.
Within professional context.
Do some reconnaissance and figure out who's working next to you. It's fucked up. It's fucked up because like, we have access to everything. But you can see it like in the comments, in my comments, I'm like, man, people are just like, they're so hurt. And it comes out and there's no real interactions. There's no like honest, authentic interactions. It's all like, will people like what I'm saying? Will people respond to what I'm saying? Like you're thinking about what you're going to say next, but you're never like really listening to any. So it's not really a conversation. And like, you guys know, like, okay, so I've been doing a lot of the client calls lately. So for all just started this, all new clients that are trialing, we got a list, and we're just giving them a call in their trial week to get to know them, to see how they're doing, to help them out, understand how to best execute the program, or if there's anything we can do to help them meet their goals. So I was on the call yesterday with somebody, and I started to like go off map a little bit, and I was like, dude, I'm going to be honest with you. I love making these calls. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I used to coach in a gym. and I used to be face to face with people every single day, and I knew all my clients. I knew what they did for work. I knew if they were married, if they had kids. I knew what they were struggling with. Like there was a connection there, and they knew me, and that bond really made it fun to come in and see him and coach him, because it was like, it wasn't just like a class, it was like a frat. It was like these boys, you know? And since we started Thundrbro and everything is online, you know, we're blessed to have all these athletes, but I don't know hardly any of them, you know, like I don't know. There's a handful that I know that I've just reached out to me, and we just have long conversations. Some of them even come down to visit and stuff like that, but most of them I don't know. So being able to like get and just shoot the shit and, you know, even just spending a couple of minutes just talking and understanding who you're dealing with. Because I feel like, at least in fitness, we have so many commonalities with our members. They don't even realize it. Like a lot of this stuff they're going through, we've been through too. And we're all people that are like passionate about fitness, but like lifelong athletes. Like movement is joy. I want to be my best. The gym means a lot to them. It's kind of like their oxygen, just like it is for us. And then the camaraderie that comes along with that is like super special, you know, because that's the thing that connects us. It's like, no matter who you are, you might be totally different than me on the other side of the world, but we have this thing, this fitness thing that really bonds us together. And it's a way to really grow a family. But unless you have that authentic interaction, you don't have that same connection. And it's been fun making these calls because I fuck with them too. I'm like, I've been leaving funny messages.
That's awesome.
Like, you better be doing your workout right now. Taking a shit. But when you're done wiping your ass, give me a call back.
Man, I don't know if there's a better place to like leave this first like podcast than that, right? That's like a super positive note. And I think
as people let us know, drop us a note. It's an hour-long podcast. Only takes you an hour to listen to. If you like it, drop us a note. Let us know how you like this. If there's something you want to know about, or if you want someone you want to know about, like John's very interesting history in all things, or what movies Kenny's in, because you can IMDb him, but like he's got some cool shit in the pipeline too. Hit us up. Let us know. We'd love to talk about subjects you're interested in, and continue to connect with you guys in any way you can. We're just a family of bros working hard, having fun, and bringing thunder.
Yeah, hell yeah. And hopefully we can figure out how to make these things live stream.
I don't know if it is live streaming. It might be. I don't know.
I looked on YouTube. I didn't see any lives happening.
We have to figure this out. We got
to figure it out, because it'd be great to have it live stream.
I know it's supposed to be, but remember we were saying, like, oh, that's kind of funny that we just put in our username and they were like, done. And I'm like, you don't need any credentials to hook this up. Right? Put in our usernames, like, oh yeah, you're all set.
It just kind of went, and there it was.
Fair enough. All right, I'm going to end this recording in 3, 2, 1. See you next week, guys.
Bye, guys.
All done.